Hello! If you open the website of any ERP consulting company, you will surely see a mention of its unique and proven implementation methodology, of course with its catchy name. Sure step, quick step, trusted journey, success by design, you name it. Just mix up the words that mean quick, proven and journey, add the name of the company, and you will get a brand new methodology. I think our marketing department also came up with something similar, didn't they? But if you look deeper on these modern ERP implementation methodologies, they all have the same basic principles in common that make difference on the project. And in this episode, we are going to distill and explain these core principles. If you are engaged in a new ERP implementation project, good understanding of these principles will help you build the right project structure and focus on what is truly important to make it successful. Plus, we will try to make it simple. So let's get started. It is a well-known fact that the vast majority of projects fail not because of wrong technology selection or technical limitations, but rather due to the issues with project governance and requirements management. Nowadays, the technical possibilities are far ahead from what businesses actually adopted. Historically, to address challenges with project governance, the most ERP implementation methodologies follow Waterfall approach. It's sequential phases when you start with requirements analysis, followed by solution design, code development, then system deployment, and finally, you expect the successful go live. However, what experience showed us in this case, it is a very high risk that go live won't be successful, because the Waterfall method has some inevitable issues. First, to make sure that all the requirements are gathered with enough level of details, there is usually a very long analysis and design phase, followed up by massive documentation that should be signed off by the client. They can do a formal sign-off, but still hesitate to do a thorough document review. But it doesn't really work, because it's way too difficult for the business expert to meaningfully sign off a document without having some sort of hands-on experience in the software. Well, believe me, these signatures doesn't really help anyone if project is failed. Alternatively, you can go into so many details in requirement description that eventually these documents themselves become a more expensive deliverable than the actual ERP software. And if you are lucky and done it, guess what? Business may change. The market these days changes rapidly, so does the business, making all the efforts you spend in documentation irrelevant. On the other side, the Agile approach was kind of fresh answer to these issues, but pure Agile methodologies work best for the product development from scratch and not quite suitable for ERP implementations, because of two reasons. First, modern ERP software has a typically very rich off-the-shelf functionality with a lot of pre-built features that covers most of the company needs. These days, the smaller and smaller portions of the ERP implementation is purely software development, thanks to the growing popularity of configuration tools and low-code frameworks. And even if you want to develop something new in the system, you still need to follow the guidance from the software vendor to ensure compatibility with future updates of the core system. Pure Agile approach also have unclear commercial exposure. Business scope in ERP context is relatively predictable, so project sponsor wants to have the timeline and budget discussed upfront, meaning that you can't start development out of blue sky. Years of practice show that the mix of Waterfall and Agile approaches works best for the complex software implementations like ERP. You may have heard such by many names, but these hybrid methodologies are built on the following principles. Business process focused definition of scope, not by technical features. Who is happy with ideally working pricing calculation feature if user can't simply register a new sales order in the system? So the best way to align business and software experts in terms of works to be done, and furthermore, the best way to track the progress, is to look at the project scope from the point of view of end-to-end business processes. For example, processes like order to cash or procure to pay at the highest level, then broken down further by business line or particular business scenario and allocated to the various delivery iterations to build up the whole project plan. The rationale is very simple. ERP software makes value for the business if only user can execute the complete process in it. Delivering working software process by process in each iteration helps incrementally build up readiness of the system, from the least configured prototype to production-ready software. Next principle is repeated validation and early engagement of the business users. By the end of each sprint or iteration, whatever you like to call it, there is always a session with business users to show them how they're exactly going to execute the process in the system. It also stands as a medium to collect users' feedback. Consultants call such sessions by various names. The most common are playback or conference room pilot, aka CRP. It is vital to show the exact steps that business user is going to do at their daily job on real data. The goal of the session is to show the working software to the right business audience in a language they understand. So instead of revealing the whole system by the end of the project and thinking that everything done meets user expectations, you regularly engage the users to validate software and make changes. It has a lot of benefits. By doing this simple technique, we reduce the risk of misdelivery. If something was misunderstood by the technical team, it exposed early in the project, because it's much easier to discuss differences within the context of real business example performed in the system. Likewise, it turns out that the better understanding of product off-the-shelf features by users help reduce the level of customizations. Always take into account that the implementation of a big system such as ERP may result in significant change of a user's day-to-day operations. By human nature, we want to reduce the stress and uncertainty by hedging all the possible risks and trying to stick as close as possible to what we already have now. But if I, as a user, can see by my eyes on the session that I can do the same job in a new system, maybe just in a different way, or even easier, I'm less likely to force unnecessary changes to the off-the-shelf product. It also helps prioritize requirements and discuss possible workarounds. The recommendation is to have subject matter expert from business showing the real business scenario to end users. It's not meant to be a perfect demo performed by a technical or software expert, but rather a validation point to show that everyone on the same page. It helps to build a sense of ownership of the software by the business. Altogether, trying to build something that adds value to the business. It makes users more engaged and helps smooth out the transition. Important to note that in order to make the business scenario as close to real as possible, all the supportive technical activities, such as data migration or security configuration, needs to be delivered within the same sprint. By contrast, in the old Waterfall approach, these activities was done after completion of the development phase. In the hybrid approach, we migrate as much data as necessary to make particular process work in the system. Now, let's take a look on an example of how this principle can be brought together. I will reference the method proposed by Microsoft for Dynamics 365 implementation projects, but as I mentioned, it's just another instance of the same rationale. The project starts from initiation phase. It primarily consists of analysis workshops. The project team works together to define business process scope, high-level solution design, and most importantly, the project master plan. At the end of the phase, the joint team together decides which business processes to be delivered in which iteration. At this stage, you also want to have a backlog of potential customizations and all related activities like data migration, security configuration, other system integrations development to be allocated to the respective sprints with respective business processes. The level of details gathered about business processes should be just enough to make a reliable master plan and solution design with some level of confidence. It doesn't imply you need to know all the nuances by the end of the phase. Team will learn more by doing actual software delivery. I want to emphasize that the team responsible of the business process delivery within the iteration has a joint nature. It consists of both technical and business subject matter expert with a clear distribution of responsibilities and tasks. The next phase, called implementation, it consists of all the iterations we envisioned in the master plan. The goal of each sprint is to deliver an end-to-end business process as a working software package. Each iteration or sprint starts with a planning activity where all stakeholders agree on the business processes they want to see working in the system by the end of the sprint, and what activities and deliverables should be completed to achieve this. It's a common practice to have the sprints up to 1 to 2 months long, with the daily stand-ups to synchronize the team and visualize the progress with some sort of burn-down diagram. Make sure that the joint team responsible for the delivery have enough authority. The more autonomous the team in making decisions, the faster the delivery. Try to make as much as possible from this basic agile practice. The last and the most important part of the sprint is a session with users, usually called conference room pilot. As I mentioned earlier, in this session, subject matter expert from business showed the real scenario to the right business audience. From one sprint to another, teams should show the incremental improvement and readiness of end-to-end business processes in scope. To set right expectations, CRP is not the testing activity, nor user training, and not just quick FYI demo. The objectives are to validate process completeness and collect users' feedback on what's exactly outstanding. These outstanding items are then planned to be delivered in the next sprints. By experience, it is recommended to add one more blank iteration to the master plan that may consist of these outstanding items not initially envisioned. But be careful not to make yet another project. The last two typical phases are deployment and operations. These two typical activities consist of user training, cutover planning, end-to-end acceptance testing, and subsequent go-live and hypercare user support. I won't stop a lot of this because there is not much special comparing to typical waterfall implementations, but with important reservations. First, end users already have some experience in the new system. They have sensed that system was built considering their needs. All stakeholders have a high level of confidence that all possible business scenarios are covered, and it's not a big bang for everyone. Second, the system is in production-ready state. Ideally, you just need to import opening balances to start operations, and it's very high chance that go-live will be manageable. The principles we discussed are aimed to reduce the risk of misdelivery and user traction. But what about project time to value? Is there any tools in hybrid approaches that help speed up the project? Typically, it's achieved by pre-built reusable assets that the consulting partner accumulates through the years of his practice and automation tools provided by software vendor. For example, Dynamics 365 has application lifecycle management portal that simplifies administration of the system in the cloud. All related administrative activities like database backup restore, application updates, and system monitoring are done through that service. All relevant administrative activities like database backup restore, application updates, and system monitoring are done through that service. It's very deeply integrated with Azure DevOps and Visual Studio to make it possible to implement continuous integration and continuous delivery of custom code packages without significant effort from technical team. Azure DevOps itself has task management capabilities, so each task within the project could be registered and tracked within the tool, simplifying the project traceability and making the work transparent. Another very helpful tool that we use on every project called Task Recorder. It helps to record and share interactive guides within the system for end users, showing how to execute activity in the system. For example, how to create a sales order. It shortened the learning curve for end users. Based on these recordings, we usually create test libraries to automate regression testing. It's very useful in iterative delivery. Besides that, pre-built project assets are tightly overlap with a technical partner industry or business expertise, which includes but not limited to business process libraries, data migration templates, reports, or code extensions that are relevant for this particular industry or business process. Everything that can speed up generation of project deliverables or reduce the effort required to make them. Last but not least is the way how you report the progress to project stakeholders. Business process focus scope and visual representation of the work being done is the key to align all stakeholders on the project status, issues being raised, and what impact it has on the overall delivery. Examples are the Kanban boards or business process completion map by department, as you can see on the screen. Alright, this episode wasn't meant to cover all the aspects of ERP implementation project, but rather focus your attention on the most important topics of project governance. Principles we mentioned have proven to ensure successful go-live. Okay, down below in the description, you can find additional links about implementation methodology from Microsoft and other tools I mentioned during this video. Feel free to contact us if you need any guidance in your next ERP implementation project. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode.